Good morning. This is the June 24th board meeting of the CalHFA Board of Directors, and we're glad to have you all here today. You'll notice that we have some housekeeping items displayed on the screen. All of our board meeting materials will be posted on the CalHFA website at calhfa.ca.gov. We are recording today's meeting. It will also be posted on the website. There is a public comments guide in our handout section of the control panel. And when we get to the public comments section, we will give you some instructions, but we'll ask you to raise your hand if you have a comment at that time. So at this point, I'd like to turn the meeting over to our chair, Michael Gunning.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa, and good morning to everyone. Good to see everyone. How about a roll call?
You bet. Ms. Avila Farias?
Here.
Ms. Gallagher?
Here.
Ms. Gunn for Dr. Imbasiani? Let's see one more time. Ms. Gunn for Dr. Imbasiani. I'm not hearing her. She was here earlier, but we'll come back. Chair Gunning?
Here.
Mr. Hunter?
Here.
Ms. Johnson Hall? Ms. Johnson Hall is absent. Treasurer Ma?
Here.
Mr. Olmsted for Mr. Velasquez?
Here.
Secretary Castro Ramirez? Secretary Castro Ramirez? I see you here. I'm just not hearing you.
You're on mute.
It looks like our audio is having issues. We'll come back to you, Secretary. Mr. Prince?
I am here. Good morning.
Great. Gotta love technology, right? Mr. Russell?
And it's only been a year and a half. Like, it takes me a little bit longer to learn.
Right, that's right. Mr. Russell, I'm sorry.
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Sotelo?
Good morning, everyone. I'm here.
Mr. White?
Here.
Ms. Campbell for Director Morgan? Okay. Ms. Campbell is absent. Ms. Calvert for Ms. Bosler? And Ms. Calvert is absent. And Mr. Kavir?
Here.
All right, so let me check and see if we have Ms. Gunn's audio back.
Yes, Ms. Gunn's here. Sorry about that.
Great, thank you. And Secretary Castro Ramirez, did we hear you? Looks like we're still having technical issues with your sound, but maybe we can continue to work on that. And I see her visually, and I think our other board members can see her, and maybe members of our audience. I'm going to check Secretary Castro is here. And with that, Mr. Gunning, we have a quorum, and thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. And good morning. Welcome to everyone. I want to make sure everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from our last meeting. Would anyone have any edits or changes to the minutes? Then why don't we deem them approved, Melissa, and move on to the report for Don and I. I think for me, Don, I want to talk about Mr. White and Anna Maria getting approved by the Senate. Congrats to both of you, 39-0. I think we figured out one, it should have been 40, but we lost one senator, was absent that day. So congrats, and it's official, and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Awesome. Don, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Chair Gunning. I'll keep my comments brief. I just want to give a little bit of a prelude to today's meeting. So as you all know, today's agenda includes an update on CalHFA's efforts to stand up the mortgage relief program using the $1 billion of federal homeowner assistance funds from the American Rescue Plan Act. And our team here at CalHFA has been working doggedly to develop our plan submission, which is due to Treasury by June 30th next week. I did get some breaking news a few minutes before the meeting started that NCSHA is reporting that the Biden administration is going to extend the foreclosure moratorium till the end of July. But I don't know if that's actually official yet, but I'm just mentioning that to the board, which I think is good news for the country as a whole in terms of all the states trying to sort of stand up this program and make it impactful to all the homeowners out there that are in need of it. Before I turn it over to the team to provide that update, I wanted to share a bit about what we've been doing to engage the public and outside stakeholders throughout our process of developing the program. And while the public outreach and stakeholder engagement is a part of the process prescribed by the initial Treasury guidance, it was our team's desire to really make this a robust and meaningful outreach process. Last week, CalHFA held 3 90-minute virtual listening sessions. These sessions were attended by more than 200 homeowners and other stakeholders, such as housing counselors, representatives of legal aid organizations, mortgage servicers, and other housing advocates and nonprofit organizations. The sessions started with a briefing from our CalHFA team, but we basically spent the lion's share of the time actually listening and trying to get real feedback from the public as to what's really happening out there. And we heard a lot of suggestions from stakeholders about eligibility, use of funds, possible barriers that we're going to need to overcome, effective outreach methods, as well as powerful stories from a variety of homeowners that are really struggling right now. And we did a third listening session that included it was specifically designed to address the needs of California's Native American tribes. Those listening sessions also were augmented by a survey that we put out into the public domain, and we received over 100 responses to that survey as well. And so we've taken all of that information, and the team here all agreed that the listening sessions and the survey were very informative and critical to helping us with our efforts to finalize this program development that the staff are going to brief you on later in the agenda. So with that as my prelude, I'm going to hand it back to you, Chair Gunning.
Thanks, Don. And I've heard from a few folks that was a good listening session, and thanks to Frances and team for holding those and making sure the public has adequate participation. Appreciate that.
Mr. Gunning,
Yeah.
before we begin, I'd just like to test the secretary's audio. Could we do a test? Can we hear you, Secretary?
Yes, good morning, Melissa, thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay.
Awesome. Welcome, Madam Secretary.
Thank you,
All
Chairman.
right. We have a report from our new chair of the Audit Committee, Delilah. You want to share with the board about our meeting? You're on the classic, you're on mute.
Sorry. I did my report already. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, what are you talking about?
Good morning, everybody. This report is for our May 27th Audit Committee meeting. Just as a reminder, the Audit Committee is composed of Treasurer Ma, Chair Gunning, and myself. So at the meeting on the 27th, we heard from Mandy Merchant from Clifton Larson & Allen. She provided the committee with a presentation of the audit's results, and I'm happy to report that the California Housing Finance Fund received an unmodified, or what we call a clean opinion, on the financial statements for our fiscal year 2019-2020. Which is great news. So applause to Don and the team, and flashback to Tia. So congratulations. Also, with regard to the single audit of our Section 8 program, as many of you know, we had several years there running where we had findings. This year we had no findings. So I want to congratulate the team once again on the fact that we did very well and had no audit findings for the Section 8 program. Let's see, I also want to add that the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or CAFRA, and the Popular Annual Financial Report are both available on our website in case folks want to take a look at those reports. And the only other thing that I would make note of, and perhaps this is something that we can talk about further down the line as a board, but the audit committee will keep taking a look at this issue, is that we did have significant delays in receiving the required information from some of our sister agencies. That really was kind of out of our control as both CalHFA and our audit team. So ultimately, those delays caused a delay in our audit completion and our financial reporting. So it's something that we as the audit committee will keep tabs on and we'll keep dialoguing about. But it is something that unfortunately we had to. It's on a trajectory of not getting. It's getting worse rather than getting better. So it's something that we just have to keep an eye on. So with that, Chair Gunning, I'm not sure if Treasurer Ma or yourself have any additional comments, but I think that would be my report.
Madam Treasurer, anything you want to add?
Nope. Delilah did a good job.
Same here. Great job.
To the team.
All right. Thank you, Delilah. Let's move on. I know we heard a little bit from Don, but I think the next item will be update on the U.S. Treasury Assistance Program. Don, I've seen enough reports that he did extend it 30 days. CDC reported it, so I think it is official. But it's fine. Who's going to report out on this?
I will.
We've got a team that's going to report out. It'll be Tim, Sue, Kathy Phillips, and Princess Marchi.
Perfect. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Chairman Gunning and members of the board. So this, as Don mentioned, that this program is now one of the major things that many members of CalHFA team are working on. I'm just here representing a sizable team who have dedicated a lot of time to this effort. Next slide, please. So the first two items here, you might recall at the last board meeting, which was actually on May 20th, I have brought to the board a resolution to approve many of the activities that's required in order to set up this program. I mentioned at the last board meeting that we had requested what we call here a notice of funds request, or it's sort of a notice of interest that we would run the program on behalf of the state of California. We did that on April 20th. And on the same day as the last board meeting, which is on May 20th, we had filed a financial assistance agreement to Treasury in order to receive the initial 10% funding. This agreement needed to be filed with Treasury. And this agreement was actually approved on the 22nd, June 22nd, 2 days ago from Treasury. And 2 days ago, we received the initial 10% funding of our allocation, which is roughly $1 billion. So we got about $105 million on Tuesday. As I mentioned at the last board meeting, the plan is actually due at the end of June. But there are a variety of things that are kind of standing in the way of allowing many states to file by the end of June. This is sort of listed in, I think, orange or red here. The first thing is that after Treasury put out the guidance, many of the state HFAs, including CalHFA, submitted questions regarding the guidance. And Treasury has not provided answers to many of these questions. That's sort of the first thing. And the second thing is that Treasury has said that because there are probably 50 states will be submitting plans for approval. They wanted sort of a universal application, if you will, so sort of a plan template. They haven't sort of promulgated or distributed what this template looks like. So that's sort of the second obstacle, if you will. And the third obstacle is that the plan needed to be submitted through an online portal, and that online portal is not out either. So those are kind of three things that kind of stand in the way of us submitting by the end of June. Having said that, Treasury is aware that these obstacles are there, and it has said that it's okay if you submit a request for an extension, and that would be considered and approved. So one of the things that I would also mention is that the plan that you submit could be subject to their comments, and if last go around when we did the hardest hit is of any indication, there could be sort of an iterative process in which they ask questions and comment, and then we respond and continue to refine the plan until it's approved. Upon the approval of the plan is when the remaining 90% of the funds, or roughly $900 million, will be released to CalHFA. Next page, please. So we didn't really talk about this very much last time, so I'd like to cover this a little bit at a high level. These are some of our high-level implementation goals that we are hoping to achieve with this program. The first thing is that the program definitely prioritizes low-income and socially disadvantaged and underserved individuals and communities. This is a policy objective that is clearly stated in Treasury's guidance, and many HFAs are, are trying to implement this. As the board might know, defining socially disadvantaged communities is something that is not as easy as it sounds, and that's something that we're really working very hard on. And to the best of our ability, we're going to set up a system that's easy and streamlined to use. And this is a comment that's also, as Don mentioned, and Kathy's going to cover later on the listening sessions. This is a comment that we hear a lot from homeowners and stakeholders. So to the best of our ability, we'll set up something that's easy and streamlined. And this one here is also something that we are very cognizant of, that we're trying to not have a program that duplicate the efforts of other programs, either state or federal programs that are being set up or stand up by other state or local agencies. And we're taking a really sort of holistic approach, much like we did last time when we did a hardest hit program, is that we're trying to understand all the scenarios that homeowners are facing and taking a very holistic approach of thinking about how we can help them. At the onset, the first thing we would do is that we're going to try to eliminate mortgage delinquencies, including the forbearance payments. As you might know, many homeowners that went into forbearance could now have up to 18 months of forbearance amounts, and those are significant amounts. And clearly, one of the main goals is to help the homeowners stay in their homes and then also have an affordable payment that's sustainable going forward. And central to what we're thinking about this time is to using the counseling network to help us connect with the vulnerable homeowners and then help them to facilitate a long-term recovery solution for the vulnerable population. They could either be unemployed or underemployed, or they could be severely housing burdened out of this pandemic. So we're taking a very holistic approach. We're trying to think about all the scenarios that are afflicting the homeowners and thinking of ways that we can help them. So I'm going to pass this over to Kathy, who's going to cover more in detail about what we heard on the listening sessions.
Good morning, everyone. Next slide, please. Thanks. So yeah, Don covered a little bit about this on the public comments at the opening of the meeting, but I'm going to give you a little more detail on the results. I'd like to point out, however, that we still are finalizing our analysis on the feedback, but I think what I'm providing today is a good overview of what we heard. We sent invitations to over 3,400 people and organizations, and additionally, we partnered with several housing nonprofits and organizations to send out the invitation to their listservs. From that, we received over 300 individual comments and recommendations that we're going through. And we hosted a variety of audience types that included homeowners and counselors to loan servicers and tribes. Some of the top recommendations or consistent comments that we heard included urgency, minimizing documentation as much as possible, having an easy application process, which Tim just mentioned, and also a concern for using authentic translation for information. In the listening sessions, there were also comments about best methods for marketing and how to reach the most vulnerable Californians, in addition to discussions on types of assistance like loan reinstatement, reverse mortgage, and property taxes. Next slide, please. And speaking of those types of assistance, one of our survey questions asked nearly 100 respondents to rank in order of importance the type of assistance needed. And many of the approved uses for the HAF funds are listed here in order of importance as ranked by the survey respondents, with mortgage reinstatement, of course, being number one. And it goes through a variety of other uses there. And those are, 1 through 7 ranked as they saw the prioritization. So far, we've been very pleased with the feedback and response that we've received from homeowners, housing advocates, and stakeholders. And we plan to use these comments. They've been very valuable during our discussions in program development and planning the work around this program. So that's just real brief what we heard, and I guess I can turn it back over to Michael.
As soon as I learn how to get off of mute. All right, any questions from board members? Thanks, Tim, Kathy, and Frances. Do want to note, Frances put the White House order in the chat, so if anyone wants to see a link to that, it's there. But any questions from board members?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Yes.
Not a question, just a comment. I just wanted to commend the CalHFA staff and leadership in terms of the very thoughtful plan and process that they've implemented in a very short period of time. As you heard from, using data and understanding where the need is the greatest to launching a very robust stakeholder engagement process. I think that, it really speaks to the commitment to ensure not only that we're aligned to the goals of the overall funding and the mission of and the objectives set out about targeting and ensuring that these dollars reach the hardest hit, but also speaks to the commitment that this administration has in terms of making sure that we're coordinating the direct relief assistance that's coming in. We have also internally within agency have been coordinating and collaborating with the CalHFA staff on ensuring that as the program gets stood up, that the information will be also available through the Housing is Key platform to ensure that users have an improved experience, and that when they're looking to to access supports or relief, if they're a renter, if they're a homeowner, that there's one place to go to, and then they of course get directed to the proper program and the proper sort of agency that's administering that program. So just want to acknowledge the terrific work of the team here in pulling all of this together in a very short period of time.
Thank you, Secretary Castro Ramirez. I agree. And even for some of the groups that contacted me directly, their staff was very responsive. And I think we at least offered everyone in California a chance to be a part of this. So thanks for those comments and kudos to the staff. Any other board members, questions or comments? Great. Well, I think at this time we move into closed session for a personnel matter. Claire or Melissa, if I don't say everything, please help me here, but I think we do go into closed session and we'll leave. Everyone else is suggested to stay here, wait here. Board members, I think you all know how to access the closed session. If no one does, check with Melissa, because I don't know. But let's go into closed session and discuss agenda item 6. So we'll see everyone in a little bit.
Hey, Michael, can you mute your mic on this one, please? Thank you. Board members are wrapping up their closed session and they will be returning soon.
Hey, Melissa, I'm looking to you for a head count.
So it might be advantageous for me to do a quick roll call to double check. So if you're okay with that, we can do a roll call in just a moment.
Perfect, do that.
Yeah, okay.
Ready, Melissa?
Yes.
All right, let's welcome back to the public meeting of CalHFA. Melissa, if you just do a roll call to make sure everyone got back.
Okay, sounds good. Ms. Avila Farias. All right, we'll check back with Ms. Avila Farias in a moment. Ms. Gallagher.
Yeah, I'm here.
Ms. Gunn.
I'm here.
Chair Gunning.
Here.
Mr. Hunter.
Here.
Treasurer Ma. We'll check back with Treasurer Ma in a moment. Mr. Olmsted.
Here.
Secretary Castro Ramirez.
Here.
Mr. Prince.
Here.
Mr. Russell.
Present.
Ms. Sotelo.
Here.
Mr. White.
I'm here.
Okay, and let me check the non-voting members. Mr. Kabir. Okay, we'll check back with Mr. Kabir in just a moment. Let me go back to the ones that haven't heard from yet. Ms. Avila Farias. Okay, let's see, I'm sorry, Treasurer Ma. All right, and Mr. Kabir?
Here.
Okay, great. So I'll go ahead and work with those other members to get them back online, but I think we have a quorum, we can continue, Chair Gunning.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. The closed session has concluded and we're now back in open session. The closed session of the CalHFA Board of Directors was held in accordance with Government Code 11126A1 and B to consider the appointment of a public employee. At the request of the governor's office, the board met with multiple finalist candidates for the executive director appointment. The board will share their input with the governor's team for consideration in making the final decision. So thanks to all the board members for your effort. I thought that was a good session. No action was taken by the board during the closed session. And we now move on to the next agenda item, which is 7. Is there any discussion or items for discussion from other board members at this time?
If I may, Mr. Gunning.
Mr. Russell? Yes.
So this is more of I guess a report from local affairs here that I think is of some broader interest, which is we recently had a legacy portfolio. It was owned by a foundation, a portfolio of nearly 6,000 naturally affordable apartments that were sold in one fell swoop to the Blackstone Group. And it's a distressing development where the owner didn't feel the need to either break down the portfolio into bite-sized bits that affordable housers could possibly bid on. There's no effort to otherwise protect the tenants. No force of law to make them behave in any other manner. So it has raised a question. I'm just really kind of surfacing this issue of the somewhat predatory aspect of some real estate investors in our communities and the enormous impact they're having. In this particular instance, with 6,000 units, it approximated about the last 4 or 5 years of affordable housing production in the region. And so it feels like we are, trying to swim upstream in issues like this. We are working amongst ourselves and others in the region to look at creating an equity fund that might be able to do opportunity purchases. There's very few portfolios of that size, of course, but it was really an issue writ large. What is happening on a smaller basis every day in our communities, which is these apartments are being purchased and there are no protections really of significance for the tenants. We are convening some private foundations. We're looking at ways that private equity or philanthropic equity might be deployed in this case. But I really want to put it out there that we're looking at this issue, and I look forward to, if any of you who are my colleagues here have an interest or some insights into the topic, I'd love to entertain a discussion either as part of our work here or offline, because it's, I feel like we're closing the barn door. Half the horses are gone, but let's, it's still having a real impact. So that is,
this is Fred. I'm on the phone. I'd be interested in discussing this further with you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Fred.
Yeah, Fred and Steve, I would echo that too. I've been in touch with a group out of LA that has already brought up corporate ownership versus natural citizens. So this is an issue, and I commend you for bringing it up and certainly want to be part of that.
Okay, I'll ask my staff person to see if maybe we can just have an informal phone call, the three of us. And thank you.
Throw me in.
Mr. Chair, is it
always?
Chair Gunning, is it appropriate to ask Stephen a question on?
Please do, and of course, Claire, can we even talk to each other like that? I'm nervous now about Brown Act, so I don't want to get in trouble, but go ahead, Zach.
I guess maybe I'll make a general comment, and if you want to elaborate, you can. It sounds like these were not items that were under foreclosure, but rather someone who sold. The reason why I'm asking is Senate Bill 1079 from last year is in effect of law. With Senator Skinner's bill, which does deal with noticing around properties going to foreclosure to give opportunity before they be sold to corporations. But it sounds like the way you presented, it was an independent choice of an owner to do that transaction. So it probably wouldn't have applied. There is a chance there might be some resources coming in the state budget. However, I don't know if it would be able to mitigate against that concern. If a private owner wants to do their own thing and sell to those corporate owners, that's a tough thing to prevent.
No, this was a case. It was a private foundation. The Conrad Prebys built an empire built it on the rents and revenues he collected in these neighborhoods, left it to a foundation, and frankly, they focused their philanthropy on white coastal communities. So there's, but they're outright owners. They had the right to do it. There was nothing to stop them.
Claire, can we talk like that, or how do we do that? Before
So actually, Mr. Gunning, Claire's not on the call right now, so we can
okay,
probably.
well,
check in with
Don,
her.
would you look into that and let us know? Thank you, sir. Awesome. Are there any comments from the members of the public, or comments from members of the public? That's right. Anyone from the public still here? Great.
Yeah, we don't have any hands raised.
Mark, no one?
I don't see any hands raised right
No.
now.
Yeah, we don't have anybody.
All right. Well, with that then, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Motioned and second. Thank you, everyone. Great session, good production. We'll see you guys next time. We're adjourned.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you all.